It's the Law with Morelli Churtko. My name is Howie Reimer. Joining me from Morelli Churtko Lawyers is Rachel Lammers. Welcome.
Hi.
Just tell me a little bit about your time in Kamloops. How long have you been here, and how long have you been with Morelli Churtko?
I've been with Morelli Churtko for 14 years. I came for the job interview to Kamloops 14 years ago, and I've been here ever since. And I love Kamloops. I'm quite committed to it. I love it here.
We're going to talk a little bit about how intimidating it can be to hire a lawyer. The average person doesn't have a lawyer per se, so I think cost is one of the big things, and the legal fees. People really want to know how that works. So tell us a little bit about how much it's going to cost me to come to Morelli Churtko and hire a lawyer.
Well, that all depends on what you need done. I often say that hiring a lawyer is sort of like seeing a doctor. Sooner or later, you're probably going to use one and see one. As far as legal fees goes, there's a range of different ways that we can have a fee arrangement with a client, and it really depends entirely on what you're asking a lawyer to do for you. If you're asking a lawyer to prepare a contract for you, or something like a separation agreement, a cohabitation agreement, those are contracts. Or if you want a will prepared, for example, those are things that can be done on a flat fee basis. We're going to prepare this document, we know what it's going to cost, or how much time it's going to take, and so therefore we can tell you what it's going to cost up front, and we call those flat fee arrangements. So you come to Morelli Churtko, you say, I have these kind of assets, and I want to make a will. Well, we can tell you what that's going to cost up front, because we know how much work's involved. But when you come to litigation, it's a different story, because we can't look into the crystal ball and predict where your legal case is going to go. We don't know if it's going to settle early or if it's going to require a 3-week trial. And so we can't tell you those kinds of fees up front. And for when we're dealing with litigation cases, which is going to court type of cases, then we're talking about either a contingency fee agreement or an hourly fee arrangement. And contingency fee arrangements are where the lawyer will take a fee at the end for a certain percentage of the award you get. And a lot of people say, well, I want you to do my family case on a contingency fee agreement. And we can't do that because we can't guarantee that there's going to be any sort of financial result for you in the end. Really, contingency fee agreements are really limited to ICBC cases where we're acting for a plaintiff and the accident is not your fault. Then we can say with some confidence that your case is going to result in an award for your injuries, and on only those circumstances can we accept your file on a contingency fee basis.
So do you keep people up to date throughout their case if it's sort of drawn out, and the more that they consult with you, I imagine the fees continue. So do you sort of keep them up to date on how the fees are going to work as you go through the process?
Of course, we have to do that. But when we're talking about contingency fee agreement, the lawyer gets paid the same percentage whether your case settles in a month or in 5 years. So whatever it takes to resolve your case, then the fee will be determined at the end. But the other kind of fee arrangement that we engage with clients is called an hourly fee arrangement. And that's what all family cases are, unless it's a contract that we're being asked to draft. We're dealing with an hourly basis for anything that involves civil litigation, family law, commercial litigation, estate litigation, anything that's a court case, whether you're the one bringing the claim, the plaintiff, or the one being sued, that's the defendant. Either of those cases, we have to act only on an hourly fee basis. And the reason is we just don't look into the crystal ball, and we don't know if this case is going to go on for years, whether we're going to have to go to court at all, or 5 times or 10 times or 3 weeks. We can't predict that at the front end. So the only way that we can do those cases on an hourly basis. And to answer your question, yes, absolutely. It's especially, it's most important on the hourly basis to talk about what are we looking at here in terms of fees. And it's so important that your lawyer talks and communicates with you about where your case is going, what are your chances of success, and what is the cost that you can expect.
When does the other party pay for your legal fees? When do you not have to pay your own legal fees? Well,
unless it's a contingency fee agreement, in an hourly scenario, the other side pays your fees only under certain circumstances. And I usually tell people in a family law case or in a civil lawsuit that they should just not count on getting the other side to pay the legal fees, because legal fees only get awarded to a winning party. And if you settle your case outside of court, there's really no finding as to who's the winner and who's the loser in quote-unquote loser in such a case, because the court hasn't made a decision. You've settled the case out of court, and in those kinds of circumstances, usually nobody gets their legal fees. Everyone has to pay their own legal fees in those kinds of scenarios. Costs, we call it costs, which is legal fees for quote-unquote winning a lawsuit, is an amount that a court will award the successful party, usually following a trial. And if the court decides you're more successful than the other party, you can get costs. But costs aren't exactly what you pay your lawyer. It's an amount that may go towards that amount that you paid your lawyer, but it's never the same amount. And even if you win a case, and even if you get an award for costs against another party, you have to think a little bit ahead about whether you're actually going to get that person to pay it. Just because you get a judgment against somebody or a costs award doesn't mean the other side is going to whip out their checkbook and cut you a payment for what you're owed. So
is that often the case?
Well, it sometimes is the case, and so we have to. That's why we don't. We have to think about who are you launching a case against. Are you launching a case against someone who's in a position to pay, or against someone who's on the verge of bankruptcy and will not pay anything to anybody? And so these are realistic concerns that we have to think about when we're at the front end of your case, talking about, well, okay, we're going to make this investment here. You, the client, have to think up front about, am I going to be able to afford this litigation? And your lawyer should give you some information about what to expect. And even if I do win this litigation, is the other side even going to pay me? And what are my chances of collecting even if I did win? All very important things to think about when you're talking about, am I going to get my legal fees back?
For people going into this blindly and not knowing how the pay structure works, what are some tips that you might be able to offer, or what are some things that people can do to maximize their dollars paid to you and Morelli Churtko?
Well, the number one thing that I certainly advise my clients is, let's talk about if it's even smart to start a lawsuit. And that's when we have a long look at the beginning about whether or not your lawsuit is against somebody that's likely to pay. Is it against somebody that you can succeed on? And we look at a bunch of different factors to see that whether or not your case is one that you can collect even if you win. So those are very important questions at the beginning. We don't want to throw good money after bad and pursue judgments. We call them empty judgments against somebody who's can't pay it or won't pay it.
All right, we've just about run out of time on this particular segment, but thank you so much, Rachel, and looking forward to having you in next time.
Thank you so much.
It's The Law with Morelli Churtko and Rachel Lammers.